Hi everyone, it's May here. We are talking about the Italian or tubular cast on today. This is a video to go along with my Norma sweater knit along, although this could be a good resource for any tubular cast on. So the tubular or Italian cast on is kind of the partner to the Italian bind off. You get this really nice, almost rolled, seamless looking edge. You don't have that very clear cast off edge that you might get with a standard cast off or cast on. So it's a really nice professional look. It is meant for the 1x1 ribbing, and it is a few steps. So in the Norma sweater pattern, they just say complete the setup rounds, but don't tell you how to do that. So this is the purpose of this video. We're going to start by gathering our materials. I highly recommend having stitch markers. You'll need your yarn, and then I also recommend a size larger for your needles. So for the Norma sweater knit along, or for the Norma sweater in general, you're using a size 4 needle for your ribbing at the neck, although I am casting on with the size 5, so it's a little easier to go into my stitches after I do my setups. So we're going to start with a slip knot, like a traditional long tail cast on. This is an iteration of the long tail, I would say, so it's fairly similar. So we're going to start with our slip knot, and then actually our setup is going to be in our 1x1 ribbing. So our slip knot counts as our first knit stitch, and then we are going to start with a purl. So I'm going to go back under my further strand and then around and up my closer strand. And then you see that back strand has wrapped around my front strand and it looks like a purl bump. So you're essentially twisting your stitches around each other. So for the knit, we're going to come under our closer strand and back around your further strand. And you can see it sort of looks like your knit stitch with your two legs there, no purl bump. You want to make sure that your twist is really seated at the bottom of your needle, and you don't want them to start spiraling or turning around. So another purl, back around, and then a knit, forward and back. So it's really repetitive. There are many other videos out there that are slower, but this is the main way that we're going to do it. Now, it's really easy to lose track of these stitches, which is why I recommend having your stitch markers. Once your needle is pushed back or your stitches are pushed off of your needle onto your circular cord, it gets really hard to count them. So I recommend placing markers. I'm going to be placing markers every 30 stitches, but you may want to place them every 10 or however many works for you. So we're just going to continue in this way, knitting and purling, or your knit purl twist, to get this first setup round. And just try to keep your stitches consistent and make sure that twist is at the bottom so you're getting a nice even kind of a spine, I'm going to call it, underneath. So make sure you're placing those stitch markers and keeping track as you get your stitches cast on. It's a little bit funky, but you are going to get into a rhythm, and I'm sure it will seem easier. It might even feel quicker than a long tail cast on because you're not creating that loop around your thumb and pulling through. You're kind of just twisting around each other. Now, the way I do mine, you end up with a little bit of a twist when you are ending, but I will describe that later. So I'm counting and making sure I'm finishing up those stitches. Remember, you're going under the back leg first for your purls and under the front leg first for your knits. However makes sense to you. You may want to look up other videos, and that's totally fine, but I wanted to provide this resource. So I'm getting down to the end of my row here, just kind of doing some extra counts. And if you keep your spine kind of settled, your stitches should look similar to regular stitches. Now, your last stitch is going to feel unfinished and loose, so I usually pinch it there before I turn my work around. I want to make sure that last purl stitch stays intact, so I'm kind of just pinching it there and holding down my tail as I work into this. So I'm going to be knitting my first stitch, and you'll actually see me knit this one incorrectly, but then I'm going to be slipping a stitch with the yarn in front purlwise. This is our double knitting setup round. And then because of the way I cast on, I do need to knit through the back loop here. So I'm going to be slipping one purlwise with yarn in front, knitting through the back loop, slipping one with yarn in front purlwise, knitting through the back loop, repeating until the end of my round. So this double knit, we're going to actually do 2 rows of double knitting. That kind of creates that rounded, nice puffy texture for your edge. And then I will continue all the way to the end, and then I will turn my work and I will just knit one, slip one purlwise with yarn in front. On that second round, I do not have to knit through the back loop, so it's going to be much quicker. And you'll see that after the first round even, and then after the second round, your stitches are going to be very clear and it won't seem as loose and maybe messy looking. It gets a lot cleaner. It's kind of a trust the process thing. So I'm just finishing that second setup round, my second double knit round, and just speeding that up so you don't have to watch me do all of that. But it should go pretty quickly, and then you're ready to join in the round. So once you finish your second round of double knitting, it's time to join in the round. So you've come back, and I'm just going to join right from here. I'm going to make sure my stitches aren't twisted. That's still important, but they should be easy to see at this point. You should have a nice clear edge, and you're going to also switch to your smaller needles here. So I'm going to add my beginning of round marker, and I'm switching to a separate needle. If you have interchangeables and you just are changing, that'll be even easier, but that's why you'll see my second set of needles here. Now, you want to make sure your join at the beginning of the round is quite tight, so if you need to pull on that first stitch a little bit extra, definitely encouraged, as well as leaving your tail behind so you can use it to sew in any gap later. I do this afterwards off screen, but you want to make sure that's really tight. And you're just going to work in a 1x1 rib, so you're going to knit one, purl one around until the end of your round, and then you're going to continue and repeat until you have the desired length. For the Norma sweater specifically, you will be using or be knitting 11 centimeters or so. If you would like to change that, you're free to do so, but you're just going to continue in your 1x1 ribbing, and you've done your tubular or Italian cast on setup. So just continue in this way, and you'll have a nice, clean cast on edge and a very professional look for your 1x1 ribbing. And you can see here, even though I pulled my strand quite tight, I do kind of have a gap there. On the next round, I'm also going to pull that first stitch tight, but my tail will be used to sew that in, and you won't even notice it. So happy knitting!